For more on this worrying sequence of events in the trucking sector and the claims of economic sabotage, we're now with CEO of the Road Freight Association, Gavin Kelly, and Dr. Pali Lehohla, Director at the Economic Modelling Academy. You can be a part of the conversation tonight on 072-110-5584, or you can tweet us at Newzroom 405. Gentlemen, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on tonight. Dr. Pali, trucks are being torched, economic sabotage. Syndicates are discovered at Eskom, economic sabotage. Illegal miners being found, economic sabotage. July unrest, economic sabotage. Cable theft and infrastructure damage, economic sabotage. There's ongoing strike at Transnet. We say it's economic sabotage. Are we using this term loosely, or do we have a proper use for it?
Well, when you have that multiple crisis on your plate, you then know that you have a failing state. When nothing works and public expectations are high on that, but their level of dissatisfaction is very high, then you certainly have a failing state. And these multiple crises are caused by a number of factors, one of which, if on the subject of transport we are talking about, is a failing rail. So things that have to be on the rail have come on the road and causing congestion and destroying the road. So whatever we are doing are palliatives to the malady. We need to actually have things that have belonged to the rail, go on the rail, and those that have to be delivered by trucks to be delivered by trucks. Our road infrastructure has been damaged very badly by huge tonnage of trucks, and that is caused because the rail has failed. Yeah. So there is no sabotage. The government policies themselves, the lack of attendance to economic policies and design triggers what we call now economic sabotage. So who is sabotaging who here? It is the government sabotaging itself. What we are seeing are just symptoms, not the cause, the root cause.
Not the root cause. Gavin, what we're seeing are just symptoms, not the root cause. So in a sense, is there a group of people, a group of cartel, a forum of some sort, some gangsters who are saying, listen, we're going to wake up and go burn some 6 trucks and sabotage the economy of South Africa? Is there evidence, concrete evidence to support this, and we'll keep on doing it for that matter?
Well, good evening, Dava. Good evening, Doctor, and good evening to the viewers. That's a very good question, because when we had these 6 trucks now burnt at Van Riemen's Pass, nobody put their hand up, and I don't know if anybody would put their hand up, but nobody put their hand up and said, well, that was us, and we did that because of XYZ or because of this. In the past, and we've had this sort of attack on the road freight sector, we've seen similar sorts of attacks, truck burnings, etc., has been driven by an organization called the ATDF, which later became the ATDF-SA. And that organization said that they represented unemployed truck drivers in terms of our sector, and they were bringing attention to the plight of foreigners taking away jobs. Okay, that was the very short description. Is what we saw that happened yesterday and today in Mpumalanga and up in Limpopo, is that the same crowd, the same organization? Are the objectives the same? And I think that's where a lot of speculation is starting to come out in terms of, is it economic sabotage? Because a lot of the things that we've seen happening have been quite well orchestrated, quite well planned. So the question is going to be, if it's unhappiness in the road freight sector, why have we gone back to this scene of truck burnings? Is it because the government is not doing what it's doing? And then I agree with the doctor that the economic sabotage is being driven. The roots of that lie within some of the government policy decisions, and it's very easy to point fingers at government policy. Or is it in actual fact something else? Is it a smokescreen to something else, to move freight away from South Africa? And you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you read a fair amount of stories. So are there other bodies? And we've heard about it in the construction industry. Quite often you hear the term construction mafia. They're involved with cement deliveries. They're involved with brick deliveries. You hear stories about people being prevented from doing maintenance, building. So Are there in actual fact cartels that are operating well planned, well thought out, and are not being addressed with the various security institutions?
Yeah.
Is that the setup?
And that's the question that I wanted to come to next. If we are indeed, Dr. Pali, saying, for example, there are cartels, others as they would like to believe, and I believe even the electricity minister saying we are dealing with corruption at Eskom. At some point, even the president was saying we are beginning to deal with these individuals who are acting at Eskom, for example. But are the lawmakers doing enough? One, intelligence investigations on who are the principal players and going after those guys and actually arresting them. Is the Justice Department, for example, studying all these various reports that are coming out, whether they are true or not, but coming out and getting a sense of whether there is something to investigate and something to do about this?
Well, take something like disused mines. Disused mines are valuable assets that people who used to work there will go there at the earliest opportunity to get back there. It means that the securing of those assets is not up to scratch, both by the legislating instruments and also by physically ensuring that those are kept away from the people who go there. So these things require an integrated approach of systems of laws, systems of protection that government has to undertake. Once you allow a thief to organize yourself, you find that everything flows through it. And I think this is what we are seeing at the moment, that the government is not doing enough to deal with these matters. Let's take, for instance, at Eskom. We have heard about sabotage, which was the reason for a high level of load shedding. Now we are at level 2 load shedding. Where has the sabotage disappeared? Was there a sudden reawakening? It's just a matter of loose governance that we see, and creating an environment where these things actually grow and feed off and become very, very impossible to deal with. It is the looseness of a governance mechanism of government. I would lay this at the doorstep of government, because it is when government is strong on matters of governance, on matters of delivery, on matters of planning, that you will not see these things. When it is weak as it is, then you will see these things running amok in the country.
Yeah. How strong is the government response, Gavin? It's not the first time, for example, that you and I are having this conversation around torched trucks. The last time they said, I think 20 or so, 22 people were arrested. Were those people arrested and charged and taken to court? Did they face, as the former Minister of Transport, now is the Secretary General of the ANC, says, harsh consequences from law enforcement?
No, but I haven't seen, or definitely the association hasn't seen, any of those sorts of reports. There have been reports of people being arrested. You're quite correct. And the last time, I think there were about 25 to 30 odd individuals across the country. We've heard that many of them were out on bail, but we haven't seen, for example, instances where there were people killed, drivers killed, or seriously injured or maimed. We haven't seen anybody being found guilty of murder or culpable homicide or facing the types of sentences that we would like to see happening. I think Dr. Pali's got a very strong point, and that is that the governance of our legislation, we've got very good laws in place, but the governance of that legislation, the implementation thereof, and the consequences of deciding not to play by the rules, those consequences are very, very weakly applied in the country. So no, Dr. I haven't seen any of those sorts of cases. Give
us a practical sense, an example, right? The last time we were speaking, there was this conversation. Fikile Mbalula was still Minister of Transport. Thulas Nxesi was the Minister of Labour. employment, and they said we're going to overhaul the targets as far as these trucking companies and how much percentage would be foreign nationals and how much would be local, and we'll set up, for example, some teams that will be monitored by premiers in various provinces. Has any of that been done?
Well, Tava, I think the very last thing is probably the most important thing. These teams or these units that would go and inspect. So it doesn't matter what your target is, whether it's 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. If there's no constant, frequent monitoring or inspections of employers, and not only in this sector, in all sectors, of whom they employ, whether those employees are registered with the relevant councils as required by labour law, whether they are registered with SARS as employees and skills development and COIDA and all those good things. If there isn't continual monitoring and inspection of that, then the targets don't matter. And no, the targets haven't been finalized yet, but it doesn't matter because we don't have those systems in place that all employers know that they will be checked and they will be checked frequently.
And Dr. Pali, so are we using this thing as a scarecrow, as a hoho? I mean, and to what extent are we also provoking our neighbors? If Gwede Mantashe is going to come and accuse Lesotho, your home country, and I'm sure you're passionate about it, of economic sabotage after 31 suspected illegal miners are found there in the Free State.
Well, I mean, I spoke to my counterpart in Canada, 20 years older than, or 30 years older than myself, Dr. Felegi, and he argues that until you get systems, until you get instruments to manage things, everything else becomes exhortation. It's just like reading the Bible and reading the Bible to the people and doing nothing about it. So when you say there'll be targets and there'll be that and that with that, and there'll be committees, those are not things that deal with what is at stake. What is at stake is about systems that are visible, that viciously deal with crime, that are uncompromising, and that can win public confidence in this. Once you declare targets and you don't do anything about it, the next cycle of crime becomes even much, much stronger. And you will lose it. The tide will be higher on you. And I think this is what is happening with government. It likes to make declarations. It likes to say that we are a developmental state, saying even before it puts systems of making a developmental state feasible. So the thing is at the core of decision making, which is weak, which is not supported by evidence, which does not have the technical elements that make those things happen. Yeah. It's just exhortations, so like reading the Bible.
So police saying thieves who are burning trucks could face as much as 30 years behind bars. Just exhortation. If you don't have a system in place that's going to make sure that you're putting those people behind bars for 30 years.
Well, one of the biggest problems we have, if I may speak, one of the biggest problems we have is that we seem to have this lack, first of all, in the very beginning, in our information or intelligence gathering. We're very weak in terms of that. And you know, it's very easy to sit here and point a finger at the SAPS or whatever the case may be. But that's a reality. That's very weak. There are some very dedicated people working in that department or that section or whatever the case may be. But that's weak. And then secondly, we seem to be very weak on doing preventative action. We have mostly reactive events that happen here. So something happens and then the SAPs arrive and they try and control the situation. And then following on that, as we've said earlier on, and Dr. Pali has said it, is that there's a lot of hype around what we could do. So 30 years, we haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen anything happening that would prevent those who now want to go and just cause mischief from happening. And so this will continue. There doesn't seem to be really anything that would deter anybody from doing this.
And what do we call that? Others are saying a lack of political will, because then again it supports the notion that says those who are involved are at least bolstered by high-powered political players, and hence a lack of political will to put those systems in place. Dr. Pali?
I'm not a believer in what is called political will. Political will is a cop-out language. Will is enforced by the public. That's how you will it. There is nobody who wakes up as a politician and says, I have political will. It's from the pressure by the public that people have will. It's not a God-given kind of thing. Yes, you may have outstanding politicians, but in the general, will that is just willed like that doesn't exist. You need the system that ensures that that will is seen to be done. It's like justice. Justice is not justice until justice is done and must be seen to be done. So we have to have instruments that have to make sure that these things must be seen to be done. They are not just will. When you say will, political will, it's as though we are talking about exhortation, reading the Bible every Sunday. So we need those systems that ensure, and those involve membership, active membership, active citizens, to ensure that anyone who takes a position of leadership is in the narrow. And unless and until we speak out on these things on the politicians themselves, they'll never have political will.
Gavin, final word from you. I'm not going to let you go, but one of the instruments that we could possibly be using is the, I suppose, the police and home affairs you believe can certainly help here.
Yes, it can. And I like what Dr. Pali is saying. Political will, yeah. I think we need to hold politicians accountable, and we need to hold those who are in the various structures or authorities that need to ensure that certain things are done. We need to hold them accountable. And that is coming next year, and hopefully there will be some public pressure in terms of that. Definitely. Definitely.
Gentlemen, appreciate your time. Let's leave it there for tonight because of time. He is the Director of Economic Modeling Academy, Dr. Pali Lehohla, and the Road Freight Association CEO, Gavin. What are your